Well, good evening, everyone. And on behalf of the team, I would like to invite everyone to our meeting tonight, affirming conversations, why it is important to be affirming. And I'd like to introduce our team to those who are new and our visitors, our guests. And the team that we have are Rob Smith, Celia Del Adrade, Marilyn Schnatcher, Susan Merrier, Harry Stewart, Whitney Bruno, Sue Paverty, Ryan Fay, Caitlin Smithers, and Peter Haddo as our team lead. And my name is Charles. So welcome everybody, and especially welcome to our guest speakers who we'll be hearing from a little bit later on. I thought I'd like to situate ourselves with my welcoming and with a quote. And I think this quote is really good for anyone who is affirming or who would like to be affirming. And it comes from one of my favorite authors, Richard Wagamese. And here is the quote. There is some degree of protection in surrounding yourself with sameness. There's a measure of safety living in a closed community. If you carry a feeling of being lost, it can be staked, some by the proximity to people who look like you. The paradox is that when no one different gets in, your world lacks color. Richard Wagamese. And I will pass it over to Peter.
Hello and good evening. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From various areas in the region, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. And as an affirming region, we would like to acknowledge that long before we came to this land, Two-Spirit people were here. They were well respected and loved among their people. As colonists, we came here and taught a different way of thinking, a way that hurt the Two-Spirit and alienated them from their own people. We need to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we are and can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'm just going to read the Safe and Brave Place statement. The Canadian Shield Regional Council Executive seeks to be a safe and brave place for all people to gather and participate in the life and work of the Regional Council. A space that is affirming and inclusive to all ages, races, sexes, genders, abilities, immigration status, and lived experiences. Everyone in this space acknowledges that there may be some discomfort due to discussing topics that may be uncomfortable in nature. In the establishment of a safe and brave place, participants honor each other's experience and opinions with respect to achieve a place of understanding. A space free of fear, a space free of bullying and harassment of any kind. The most important part of a safe and brave place is inclusion for all. Thank you. I will now pass it to Whitney Bruno to do our worship.
Good evening. So I'm going to lead us in a call to worship. I'm going to post it in the chat if you are a reader. And if you're not, then your response is let it be. And I will point to you when it's your turn to say let it be. So God spoke about light and said, there we go. Let it be. God stirred the waters of the deep and dreamed. God sung about life and sang. God imagined all from Alpha to Omega, A to Z, male through female, every expression of gender and sexuality and thought. When stars were scattered and life abundant, when we were intimately tied to all things and all creatures and each other, God proclaimed, all creation is very good. And so I pray, oh God, you are beyond our language. You're beyond labels. You see who we truly are. You see the colors we hide from one another. You see our cores. You see our best moments. You see our worst moments. You love us always. When we label others anything other than a beloved child of you, forgive us. Forgive us when we call others stupid, when we call others less than human, when we use medical diagnoses as insults. Forgive us when we label others. Give us the strength to stop the habit and to seek the forgiveness of each other. Reassure us you call us the very best terms. You call us salt or seasoning for the diversity of this world, people to bring forth the best in others. You call us light, a welcoming light, showing the way home. You call us your children, beloved children, and you're delighted to be our loving parent. We want to call each other the very best labels too. So we ask for new beginnings and renewed relationships that are right with all beings. In Jesus' holy name, we pray for this Holy Spirit to do your holy work of loving, affirming, and standing in solidarity with all people. Amen. Thank you for opening with me.
Good evening. The guest speakers this evening have offered to talk about why affirming is important to them. It will be their own personal stories. Our hope is that you will open your ears and your hearts to their honesty, and these stories will embolden you on your affirming journey. If something triggers you, or you just need support or pastoral care this evening, we have somebody available for you. If you go to the private chat and see Ryan Fay's name, you can chat to him and send him a message, a private message. We are very blessed for each and every person that is joining us as a guest speaker this evening, and I get the honor of introducing them. I may make a few mistakes saying names, so please forgive me. Our first speaker this evening is Celio DeAndre. Celio provides administrative support to both the Canadian Shield and Shining Waters Regional Councils. He works also with our Affirming Ministry Resource Team in the Canadian Shield. He was born and raised in Brazil. He was amazed to learn more about the United Church as being an affirming church when he first joined the grassroots movement in Simcoe Pride, where he was a volunteer to help create a positive impact on the LGBTQ+ community in Barrie. We are so blessed to have Celio a part of the United Church of Canada, and we are so blessed to have him here this evening. And Celio, I'm just going to read this one quote that was from your biography on the regional website, and it said, Celio's favorite quote is an African one that says, "I am because we are," which in his opinion is a phrase that reminds us that we need to live in community and help each other because we just exist and survive through connecting with other people. So thank you so much, Celio.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, this caught me by surprise because I wasn't expecting for you to read this this phrase right now, and it's a phrase that touches me super hard because, like as you said, I came from Brazil and I was born and raised in the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, and it's a community like dominated by gangs and paramilitary groups and violence, but it's also like there's a lot of good things happening there as well. And one of the things that I learned there in the favelas was that I am because we are. And I just survived this whole environment, all these things that happened in my life because of other people, because of neighbors, because of other people who helped me in this journey. You know, like it wasn't easy to grow up as a poor and gay kid in a country like Brazil, who is the country who most kill LGBTQ plus people in the world. Brazil, every 36 hours, an LGBTQ plus person is assassinated in Brazil. So this quote, it was gave me hope a lot when I was growing up, and it was really like that. Like if something was missing in my home, if something was happening in my home, if someone lost someone, some loved one, because this happened a lot in this environment, right? Like we lost our friends to the violence and everything. There's always someone on your side. There's always someone helping you and trying to make your life better. But yeah, but I was asked today to answer the question why affirming is important to me. And I think the Affirming Church was always in my life since I arrived in Canada 5 years ago. I had this whole experience in Brazil when I was Catholic and I was Christian for a long time. And in Brazil, we don't have this idea of what affirming is. We don't have churches that accept LGBTQ plus people. We don't have marriages in the churches and everything. The environment is super homophobic and super, it's not good for your mental health as well. And I was a teenager and a young man who grew up in this environment. So I was an outer boy, and I was thinking about to go to be a priest as well. I was also in the Protestant church before this, so I had a lot of experience with Christianism in Brazil. But it was good because I created a lot of friendships there as well. But it was not good for my mental health in general because I experienced a lot of things. Like I was remembering today with a colleague in Shining Water today, that something that happened to me in this church once, in the Catholic Church, that I was sick for 2 weeks and I didn't go to the church. And when I came back to the church, I saw a guy who was going to be a priest, and he asked me like, "Oh, why you didn't come to the church for these 2 weeks?" And I said like, "Oh, I was sick. I was with the flu." And then he said to me like, "Oh, I see. So you got AIDS and you don't want to tell anyone that you got AIDS." So this was the kind of people that I needed to handle in the church in Brazil. And I've never expected to work in a church in my life again. But when I was coming to when I decided to come to Canada, me and my ex-husband, we were trying to get out of this environment as well. But also Brazil was in a situation that was not so good. Like Bolsonaro was about to win, and Bolsonaro is like Trump, like the same ideas, the same things, and he was about to win the elections, and we were concerned about our lives, about everything that was happening there. And in 6 months, and also because like jobs and unemployment rates in Brazil was super huge. I graduated in public relations, and then I didn't find a job and everything. So me and my ex-husband, we were like, oh, let's research some places to go and try to see if we can have a better life in other places. And Canada was one of these places. But when you arrive in a new place that is not your culture, not your language, it's super hard. Like I wasn't expecting that would be so hard. Like because of my experience in the favela, and I saw a lot of things in my life, I was like, oh, it would be easier. But when I arrived here in Canada, it was so hard to be an immigrant. Like a lot of things that I needed to do with, like my family was there, my friends were there, my culture was there. It was like I was alone, just me and my ex-husband, but I was feeling like hopeless. I was feeling super desperate. I was crying like a lot every day, basically, when I arrived here for 2 weeks, because I wanted to go back. But at the same time, I was like, oh, this is my future. I will have a better life here. I'll have better opportunities here. So try to not give up. Go on, like stop crying and try to create a better life. And the Affirming Church was essential in this, because when I was here, like trying to connect with people, trying to make new friends and everything, I was like, oh, what is the first place that I should go to create friends, new friends, like something that is LGBTQ plus for sure. And then I entered in this group, this LGBTQ plus grassroots movement in Barrie. And I met Jeffrey there. And Jeffrey was in the Grace United Church in Barrie. And all the meetings of this group was happening in the church. And the first meeting, I remember that I was going there, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this safe and everything? Because I don't know like what I could find there because of my experience in Brazil with these Christian churches. But then Jeffrey said like, oh, no worries, like it will be fine and everything, let's go. And then I went there, and I remember that I had a mind-blowing moment, because it was like there was a pride flag in the church. There was like pride and LGBTQ plus books in the library and everything. And it was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this in my life before, because this is not common in Brazil. And I felt safe. And this group helped me to deal with a lot of things that was going on, because when you are an immigrant, you need to deal with racism, you need to deal with xenophobia, you go to a lot of jobs that people are abusive with you, so they think that because of your accent, you are stupid, you don't know how to speak English, and things like that. So all these things that I was experiencing at the time, this group was helping me to pass through, and I was being able to think about other stuff in my life, like about college, about how to be successful in Canada and everything. And this was essential for my success here in Canada, and to be in a safe space as well. Like this was super important, because it doesn't sound. It seems like a minimal thing, like super small thing, but it's not. Like I could go there and talk about all this stuff that was going on, and I knew that I would not. I wasn't being judged and everything. And then I remember that Jeffrey was talking to me about all this stuff, all these things about the church and everything. And then I started to have other problems as well with my visa and everything. And one thing that I say to everybody is that, like, Jeffrey never said to me like, oh, God loves you, you know, God is with you, you know. He never talked about these things with me, but his attitude, like, showed me God, you know, like I was, because I really had a problem with Christianism, you know, because of my experience in Brazil. And little by little, I was like, oh, this is different. This church is different, you know, like, and then when I was having this problem with my visas as well, I needed to find a job, urgent, and Jeffrey was like, oh, let's help you to find a new job and everything. And then I think I don't know how much longer it was, but he said like, oh, there's this opportunity here in the regional council that I work, and it's these opportunities is so your face, it's so you need to apply and everything. You're going to work with me, and I'm going to work in the Affirming church, you know, like you're going to be able to, with your support, to help other people like you know, other LGBTQ plus people, other immigrants and everything. So you should apply. And I was like, right away, I was like, oh, yeah, for sure. Like, this is amazing. Like, it will be an amazing opportunity. And I ended up passing in this job opportunity. And I worked with Jeffrey a little bit last year, a whole year with work with him. And I learned a lot more about the Affirming Church, about God and everything, and it was a very good opportunity for me. It was amazing to see all the stuff that I saw last year. Like, I saw things like a trans event in a church, you know, that I've never seen in my life before. And I went to this event, and there was a lot of amazing things, amazing people, amazing workshops. There was a workshop. It was a person that talking about how to connect with your ancestors, and I was like, oh my gosh, like talking about these things in a church, you know, and with a lot of trans people. This is amazing. So, you know, and I'm really glad that all these things happened to me, because I think it's always a healing process for me right now, for everything that I experienced with Christianism in Brazil. And once I was talking to my colleagues as well, I was like, I don't know, like, what happened, because since I started here in Canada, I was connected somehow with United Church and the Affirming Church, and I got a job in the United Church and working with the Affirming Church. And I was like, I think there's still something that I should do, that I need to do, you know, in this thing, you know, like something like maybe like a calling, you know, like because it was really it was really different how everything happened to me. And I told this, I told them, I say like, oh, I think there's still something that I need to do, you know. I don't know what the future will be, you know, but I can see that my future will be something related to this, and I will try to help other people like me, you know, as well. And let's see where this path leads me next, you know.
Celio, thank you so much. There was so much joy in your voice, and there's so much joy in your eyes. It's making my heart smile. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your story and sharing it. Our next speaker, sadly, is not feeling well, and so they couldn't make it this evening. But I think it's important that we hear their story. So I'm going to introduce the speaker, but Ryan is going to read their little thing that they sent him. So our next speaker, which is not here, is Callio Duncanson Hale. Now, Callio's pronouns are they, he, and Callio has a lifelong affiliation with United Church. While still in high school, Callio has worked enthusiastically at the side of the social justice and creation care. Callio acted as the United Church of Canada's youth climate motivator last summer with St. Peter's, St. Mark's, and St. Andrew's United Churches in Sudbury, and offered workshops on youth and climate action and the impacts of a changing climate on the needs and lives of seniors. Callio gained deeper insights into the importance of affirming ministries and the experience of working closely with St. Peter's and their affirming ministry and minister. And so I'm going to pass it over to Ryan.
Thank you, Peter. I'm Reverend Ryan Fay. I'm the minister serving with St. Peter's United Church in Sudbury, and I had the honor to mentor Callio last summer, and we are all very sorry to hear that Callio is feeling ill, so we will include Callio in our prayers of healing and hope, and are very grateful for the contribution that Callio continues to make to the church in their life and living in as well in Sudbury and the world. And so Callio had prepared some words for us in reflecting on the question of why it is important to be affirming, and reflected on their time with us at St. Peter's, saying this: in my time working with St. Peter's, I found myself feeling much more comfortable than I did any other church I had been to previously. I think the affirming nature of the church was a definite aid to this. There is something so wonderful about entering a church and knowing that you are, without a doubt, welcomed. Often churches can feel extremely overwhelming and confrontational to queer folk, but this is soothed when you know that you are in a place that is taking action and making space for you. Being affirming makes attendance and interaction with faith life much more accessible to those who have never found themselves resonating with the church. I would bring friends who had never had an experience like this in the past and introduce them to the church because of their affirming status. Being an affirming church opens doors to the wider community and represents the exact principles the United Church aligns themselves with. We're very grateful to Callio for sharing this perspective, and very grateful, I know I'm very grateful to the work and life that is lived out through St. Peter's as an affirming ministry, in that it has this effect on those who participate and who are involved with church life, that they would not expect the level of welcome, inclusion, consideration, and humanity that is shared together with that. And just to follow up a really tiny anecdote of my own, when there was a counter protest last summer during the protests against drag story times and the inclusion of education about trans and non-binary individuals in our educational systems, I saw Callio at the counter protest as well. And we were both very thrilled to see so many members from the United Church showing our affirming and loving nature by being present. And just this little anecdote of my own, I was recognized by 5 separate youth who ran up to me from the queer community. And they didn't say, "Hey, Ryan, we know you." They said, "You're the minister at St. Peter's United Church. You're an affirming church. That's a safe space for us, and we know it. And we feel welcome and loved just knowing you're there." And that made a huge impact on me. And the ministries that we share in our loving, healing, and wholeness ministries of affirming churches have an impact on others that we don't know necessarily everyone that we impact. We don't know every life we touch. We don't know every life we save, just by saying there is a church that knows that you are loved and is never going to stop saying that. So thank you, Callio, for sharing this, and thank you all for being here. And I will pass the mic back over to Peter. God bless.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
You know, I'm very lucky to be doing this job. and I'm very lucky to meet the people that I do meet. And our next presenter is Harry Stewart. And I live down the road from Harry. Harry is from Thessalon, and I grew up in Elliott Lake. So I consider it down the road. Maybe it's a little bit far down the road. But so I'm just going to talk about Harry for a second and make his head swell. Harry is the president and chair at Welcome Friend Association and the co-founder of Rainbow Camp. Harry has received various awards for all the work he has done with 2S LGBTQ+ youth. He is also a member, that I'm very glad, he's a member of our Affirming Ministry Resource Team in the Canadian Child Regional Council. And as I said, Harry lives in Thessalon, and his husband, Chris Sutherland, is also the co-founder of Rainbow Camp. And Harry's going to show us a video, and then he's going to talk for a few minutes. So I pass it over to Harry.
Hi, so if we could start with the video, that would be awesome.
That some things that they have to deal with, it has been hard.
Rainbow Camp is a camp where kids can be themselves, completely and authentically themselves. We work really, really hard at making it a safe space and being inclusive as we can.
The way it began is we were out driving actually one day, and Harry said, wouldn't that be great if we created a camp for LGBTs? And that's how it started.
It's the traditional camp experience, but more than that.
The bonding experience, meeting people, being able to help kids who I can like see myself in, because I know that some things that they have to deal with, it has been hard or will be hard, and I've been there, and I want to be able to help them the way that I didn't have the opportunity to be helped.
There are sessions run by some of the LITs and some of the staff where they can talk about things that are unique to kids from the 2S LGBTQ+ community.
It can be really intimidating showing up to a total group of strangers, especially like our first-time campers, and they're very closed and withdrawn and within themselves. And watching them like open up over the course of the week, they become more social, they get more outgoing, and feeling more free to express themselves the way they want to and experiment with that self-expression is really special.
It's my first time at this camp, and everyone here is super welcoming and kind, and I felt free to be myself.
I've like never connected with people this much in my life.
I met a lot of really cool people here, and I want to keep talking to them.
I was thinking about it, and I've literally never felt so at home somewhere, ever.
Be in a space where, you know, I was able to feel my emotions or like express like how it was, and have people be like, yeah, like you're doing that, or like, yeah, you know, I support you, I'm here for you.
The fact that the repertoire of, you know, Rainbow Camp actually extends well beyond a camp experience, I think is one of the reasons that I don't hesitate to recommend it to everybody I know.
I think what we'd like to do with Rainbow Camp is expand. That would be number one on my list. And while we're looking for property and or facility, we want to grow our programming.
I really hope Rainbow Camp continues to live for a long, long time, because it's needed. And I think these campers benefit so much from having it.
I think what I take away the most from camp is that it's a safe space.
It's really important to me that I find a community that's really accepting of me, and I want to take that home with me, because I find that really important. Being able to make like close friends and like connect with all my cabin mates and have like this really strong sense of like I'm okay here. It was really nice to have that, because it's hard to find.
Go to welcomefriend.ca, make a donation. We're always looking for donations because you're helping these campers realize their dreams.
I don't think I'll ever forget this summer. This was one of the best times I've ever had, and I love everyone here.
Hi. So I could go on and talking about camp and all the wonderful things that we do and we do with youth, but we're here, and I won't say but we're here to talk about why it's important to become affirming. And for many of our youth staff, church has never been a safe space. It's never been a place where they've been welcomed. And so when we struggle, our kids come from all across Canada and the US, and we struggle with finding a place for them, if they're interested, finding a place where they can go to worship and feel at home. So I would highly recommend that you look at becoming an affirming congregation, that you can embrace the youth that want to become and come to your church, to be part of the church family. The other benefit, and one that we haven't really talked about, is your own congregation. Parents, relatives, aunts, uncles that have never been able to talk about people they know that are under the rainbow. They need to be affirming just as much as the LGBTQ people do. We're family. And what I see is I've been blessed from Thessalon, 1,200 people, church of, well, right now it's 12 or 14. We're not an affirming congregation, but my husband and I got married there and so forth. And we want to be on that path. But what I really see is the understanding. People want to understand more, especially the I'll say seniors, because that's what our congregation is made of, but that they want to learn more because they know people, they know what it was like when they were growing up. And I'm just turned 65 and I can tell you all about what I dealt with. But the church has always been there, and to be an affirming congregation, you open up so many more doors. And you allow people to be who they truly are in many, many ways that you won't even be aware of. So take it from this old guy and really, really feel your heart out, feel your congregations out, and really, really take a hard look at becoming an affirming congregation. Thanks.
Thank you, Harry. And it's about learning more and understanding. And the only way we can change is through education. Even if it's just to take a couple of minutes and talk to somebody in your church who might be from the 2S LGBTQ community. But thank you so much. Our next guest is Steve Robertson. Now, Steve Robertson works as a chaplain in several long-term care facilities in Thunder Bay and is married to Sam. And by the way, congratulations, Steve. Is married to Sam, who currently resides in China. Sam, if you were at a previous event we had, Sam was one of our speakers, and Sam talked about what it was like, what affirming meant to him, and in his journey coming out, being in China. And talked about the separation that him and Steve had. And at that time, they were engaged, they weren't married. So congratulations. So I'm going to pass it over to Steve Robertson.
Hi, good evening. It's nice to be here, and a little bit shy in front of a computer system there. Oh, am I on now? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shy even in front of my phone. So yeah, Sam is still, thanks for talking about Sam. He's still in China, and we were married last summer in Saipan on US soil, where we were allowed to get a marriage contract and have a ceremony with the mayor. And I gave the mayor actually a bottle of maple syrup. He wondered if that was booze or not. So that's where his mind was at that time. But it was a lovely time, 5 days, very short, very, very short time. We met at the airport, and it was kind of like magic that we knew it confirmed our love for each other and our attraction to each other. So now we're going through the process of trying to work on sponsorship, finding a cheap lawyer, and doing all those kind of things now. So, and it is very good for me to be at an affirming church because Sam can work with me on that with what happened with him in China a few years ago, where he was torn off the stage after being baptized in an evangelical church that we thought might be safe, but turned out not to be safe. So they dragged him off the stage in front of everyone and sent him home. So he couldn't even watch the service at St. Paul's for a while because it reminded him of what happened in China. So after about a year, we worked on that, and he came back to watching church. His first experience with God again was we went to a Catholic church in Saipan, and I noticed he became emotional where he felt God again in a presence in a Catholic church during the service, and it was a very casual time, and Saipan's a very casual, friendly place. So he had some tears there, and so did I. Realized that he was in tears, that he had a chance to reconnect with God in a very different church. So that was our point of contact with God then, and now we still talk every day, twice a day. And with the time difference, it's a little bit strange. It's midnight here. It's 1 o'clock in the morning there, so it's a little bit hard to connect during the daylight saving time. But so going to an affirming church is important for me right now. I wouldn't know what to do to connect Sam with a church or with Christ if we were in a church that we didn't know where we stood. But Sam knows that at St. Paul's or wherever we go when he comes, that would be a place for him to look forward to. And he knows there's open arms there, so it's very important. I had an experience when I was a chaplain in Sudbury. I was just coming out back then, and I wasn't really out to anybody at work, just to one person, and the director knew. And I went to the gay bar there. And I thought it took me about 3 months to get in the door, to have actually the guts to go in and walk down the stairs. And finally, when I finally did, I met with the bartender, and he kind of introduced me to a few people. What was interesting there at the bar was I thought I would be accepted right away. And I thought, oh, great, I made it in. I'll have lots of friends now. But what I found is I wasn't much of a dancer, so I just went to the bars and a bar hound for a while, sitting there enjoying whoever I could meet. The bartender said, you won't meet very many people at first because they now know you're a chaplain. The second and third week I went, they told me that you'll make a few friends here. And it was noticeable. People would not come and make a friend instantly like they would with somebody else because I was a church person. I was involved with the church. I was a chaplain. I was religious. So to them, it was a very hard place to meet people because the stigma church had given me to carry there. So after a while, I made some friends. So then it was important to be at a place where people had met the church I went to St. Mark's in Sudbury, and they were welcoming. It was very nice. People that knew were very kind to me, and but especially important now in Thunder Bay, where we work in a working man's kind of a town, and it's not totally acceptable to be anybody you are. You have to be a certain kind of person to kind of fit in everywhere, and it's nice to be in a church that is affirming. Just to know that, but when I first came, I heard it was affirming from someone who went there, and I thought, well, this will be a safe place to go. I just went. I just knew it would be okay. It's important for me, though, to also know that where I go, I can bring anybody. So whether I bring someone who's poor or wealthy or has trouble or has been to jail or has had some trouble in life, to me, affirming also means, from whatever lifestyle you come, whether it's a disability or age or culture. And that's also important to me as well. But to know that I'm at a place where there's a pride candle and it's lit, and I don't necessarily need to see a pride candle, but anybody that I bring to the church and they see the candle, they know that, oh, they're kind of relaxed. Yes, they have a pride candle. I am welcome here. It's nice to have some signs and symbols of the welcoming. And that's much of all I want to say. I didn't have a big speech prepared, but just to say that it's good to be in a place that is affirming, that is visibly affirming, something on the door, something on the website, where you can bring anyone you like, especially in our circle of gender. Well, thank you very much for the chance to speak, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much, Steve. So, my friends, this is our guest speakers who are talking about why it's important to them to be affirming. And I'm hoping that when you listen to their stories, that maybe somehow it might inspire you maybe to become affirming, or to even look into becoming affirming, or at least have the conversation, because the only way we can change is through conversation. So I'm very thankful for everybody who came this evening to tell why affirming is important to them. Our next guest, which I'm really excited about, is Linda Hutchison. And Linda and I go back a little ways. And Linda is an Affirming Ministry Coordinator with the Affirm United. And I think it's important to understand that Affirm United is a proud partner of the United Church of Canada, and it supports all gender identities and sexual orientations. And I'm thinking that probably most of you might already know Linda. I mean, she is your wealth of knowledge, and it's always wonderful to have you with us. Before Linda begins, I just want to say that there will be a chance for a Q&A after her presentation, and I will either get you to raise your virtual hand, or you'll be able to write your questions in the chat. And we will have somebody monitoring the chat for questions. Now, if you're like me, I watch Zoom things, and it takes me about 24 hours to sometimes go over it, and I end up with a question long after the Zoom is over. So I will be punching in, I'll be putting in the chat a email address that if we run out of time, or you think of something tomorrow, that you can email Linda Hutchison, and she will gladly respond to your question. So Linda, I'm sending it to you.
Thank you, and hello everybody. I was delighted to be invited to this, and wonderful to hear all of the heart stories. Now, I think Celio was going to put up some slides for me. So if we could have those now, that would be great. And I must say that when I was preparing the slides, everything is really familiar, and it looks just like what we do every day and routine. And yet when I was speaking through my slides and getting ready for this, I thought this seems really daunting, but I want you all to remember that what I'm going to say in 15 or 20 minutes is what you would be doing over a period of time, maybe a year to 2 years or a little more, whatever you need. And so please listen up, but don't be overwhelmed by what seems like a lot of different points. All right, here we go. So on the next slide, or can I advance them myself? Nope. Can we have the next one? That's me again. This is very rewarding work. I do it mostly by email, by phone, and some by Zoom. It's just really nice to be together on Zoom with you tonight. And this next slide reiterates my thanks for you being here, and just that we're in a safe place. So if we have time later for questions, that we will speak truth, and we will ask questions in a respectful way. And Peter has already told us that if you're feeling uncomfortable, please, in a private chat, call Ryan so that he can have some conversation. And on the next slide. So this evening, we're going to be looking at what is an affirming ministry, why would a ministry become affirming, and How would a ministry become affirming? Followed up by questions. On the next slide, I think we've said already that the questions will be in the chat column, and Peter will be also watching out for people putting up hands. So the next slide gets us started with what is an affirming congregation, affirming ministry. I'm going to try and get rid of this bar on top. Anyway, so an affirming ministry is a community of faith or a congregation or educational setting that has been through an educational and a discernment process about human diversity. The congregation or the community, the ministry, has made a commitment publicly, intentionally, and explicitly, the famous PIE, to be inclusive of people of all sexual orientations and gender identities in all aspects of its life and work. So a couple of points here. This is where we see that in our language, we need to be comfortable, but we need to be explicit in the language, because so often churches have said, all are welcome, and people have found that that really isn't the case. And that follows through to when we say in all aspects of its life and work, because sometimes in churches, people have been welcome to sit in the pews and worship, to be in the choir, to help out with dinners. But when it came to being the minister, or when it came to working with youth, there were barriers put up. So those are things that are specific, intentional, and very explicit. Once we've had a look at the specificity of the queer community, then we encourage ministries to broaden their commitment beyond inclusivity in terms of gender and orientation to include all people who are marginalized. But the focus of the program actually is on sexual orientation and gender identity. And in our next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about the background, because I think it's important to know this rather than just to sort of have some kind of a program that's out there, but you don't know really where it came from. So the Affirming Ministry program started in 1992, and it is the signature program of Affirm United S'Affirmer Ensemble, which is a not-for-profit charitable organization. And it was started to assist ministries within the United Church of Canada to be more equitable and affirming in the life and work of their ministries. So you may recall that in 1988, the United Church of Canada made the astounding decision that membership to the United Church would not be exclusive, that it would be open to everyone, including gay and lesbian people at that time. Later, they added on to that trans folks. So that was in 1988. However, by 1992, gay and lesbian ministers were still losing their jobs or not able to be out and to get a job. And so that's why this group started the Affirming Ministry program, where there would be an intentional educational and discernment program and a commitment to knowing more and being more inclusive. That's a little bit of background. Currently, we have 326 affirming ministries in the United Church. These are communities of faith, a chaplaincy, regional councils, educational institutes. We've had some inquiries from camps and various other types of United Church ministries. And there are also over 170 in the Affirming Ministry process currently. And on the next slide. So that was what an affirming ministry is. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk about who is Affirm United. Are we ready for the next slide, Celio? Or whoever is moving those along for me, thank you.
It's a question. It's not going to the next slide. Oh, now I went.
Yes, thank you. All right, so who is Affirm United? As it happens, this is again a little bit of history, but I think really important to know what our roots are. It is the merging of a group called Affirm, which was established in 1982, and it was a group of lesbian and gay ministers who gathered together in Montreal for support and for trying to figure out how is this ever going to come to be that we can be ourselves and respond to God's call for us to be in ministry. It was a merger of that group plus a group that had formed 2 years later, which were the friends and family of those very people who formed Affirm. They were called Friends of Affirm. So in 1994, those two groups came together and said, let's do this work together. Let's combine our efforts and make it happen. So that's the background of Affirm United, Affirming Ensemble. Our goals are to educate, to advocate, and to support. We're a volunteer organization primarily, although we do now have 2 staff members, part-time, communications coordinator, and we are very excited that just this past year in May, I think it was, we hired our very first executive director. So we're just at that growing stage where we need to move into having more staff time to assure the continuance of the program. This Affirm United is supported by membership fees, and also we're now, we've been pleased to receive a couple of grants now that we have somebody who can write grants for us. We're endorsed by and in partnership with the United Church of Canada, but we stay separate so that we can talk with the United Church, and they are not our governance body. So in the next slide, we're going to address from a kind of organizational point of view why we should become affirming. So I think we've heard tonight the most amazing stories. These are heart stories. These are the stories that we need to listen to and that invite us into looking at why this needs to happen. And we educate now our people in an affirming process so that they can learn about and from people who are marginalized. We've had the pleasure tonight and the opening our hearts to these stories. So we educate our ministries now to open their hearts to those stories, to address unintentional and unrecognized biases. These are the things that often catch us off guard. Those that have been in privileged positions of being in a majority don't even recognize some of our biases. And we don't often recognize some of the intentional, hurtful things that we say. So in this process, we educate, we talk about, we listen to, and we try to open ourselves to those things that we unintentionally do that hurt other people. Serious conversations. In our education, we also learn appropriate and current language. And isn't that something? Because it's constantly changing. And Peter says, he said, we go back a little way, we go back quite a way. And it's amazing how language has changed over the years that we've been involved in this. So it's important that that's kept current. And also it's important in this process that we have the opportunity to practice talking, articulating, feeling comfortable, sometimes with concepts that we've never talked about, because in the church, you definitely didn't talk about some things. And often we didn't talk about it in society either, or in our families. So in becoming affirming, we try to provide that safe place to practice and to learn and to be ready to do the advocating, which is in the next slide. Advocating, taking action. We take action by being a role model for people in faith communities and in societies. I find it really interesting that there are people, I live in Kingston, Ontario, and like there are lots of people that are so thrilled to know that there's a church in Kingston that is open and welcoming. They're not interested in church, but they're just really glad that church is there for people that want it. So we're role models for society, even though society doesn't always come in the door. We also take action by advocating for people caught in systemic marginalization, like still losing jobs, still there are barriers, still there are ways that people are excluded from things they want to do. So we, as affirming ministries, need to stand up and advocate for people that are caught in those situations. We advocate for societal change as well, helping to change laws. The recent law last year about conversion therapy was a real breakthrough. And yet today, I just read in an email from Affirming Connections in Calgary that there is a speaker coming into Calgary sponsored by a church there that is pro-conversion therapy. So we have laws, but we need to keep advocating that they're followed and that this type of behavior is stopped. Also the same with the education in schools, that we need to stand up and advocate for openness and open understanding and caring for our children in schools. And finally, we take action by using gender neutral language in our conversation, in our meetings, in our worship, just wherever we are. And that leads us to our third goal on the next slide, which is to offer support. And as we've heard from our speakers this morning, we offer support by providing space as safe as possible for people who are marginalized, not only to come and be, but to be speak, to be heard, to give leadership, to participate fully in all aspects of the life of the ministry. And we provide support by providing knowledgeable pastoral care for all people, both in our own ministries and in society. I think with our Rainbow Steps in Kingston, we've had people come in interested in in some kind of support as they are hurting, maybe not interested in being part of the community, but they know that the door is open and that support will be there for them. So why become affirming when we're already welcoming? Those are the things that are important, and those are the things that we need to do the work on. All right, so that's why become affirming. And now on to the how. We've done the what, we've done the why. And in the next slide, we'll start the how. And just let me remind you, this is a lot of stuff, isn't it? But you're not doing it all in 20 minutes like I'm trying to. You're having time, you're doing it in a thoughtful process with your congregation and doing it at their own speed and taking into account the experience that your congregation has with diversity and with outreach and with this kind of work. So how to become affirming? First thing we need to do is educate. And we start usually with a small team or group which has a passion for this work, and they will get together. I connect with one of our Affirming Ministry coordinators who will send them resources, and they can ponder over those resources, read them, get to know them, and then decide to take it to the governance structure of the ministry, who educate them first and get them on board, and they will approve that you would start the process in your congregation. And from there, then the team or the group would develop a plan for how you're going to lay it out to the congregation and the various steps you would take. Moving to small groups, it's often good to have conversation in small groups where people already know each other and are comfortable. So go to the choir and go to the finance committee and go to your prayer shawl group, all of those small groups where you can have kind of an intimate conversation where people are comfortable and trust each other, and ask them, if we were affirming, how would this affect your work? Like, how would you, would it make a difference? Or what would you be aware of? And a couple of good questions there when you're having conversations are things like, what would you celebrate about being an affirming ministry? And what are your concerns about being an affirming ministry? And that last question is a really good one to give you clues as to what else you need to be doing in your educating. So we've done moving from team that puts the process together right through small groups to also educating in the community as a whole, having some special events, workshops, seminars, and also, of course, including the educational component in worship. Worship and work are one. Worship and work are part of our lives. And so this conversation needs to happen there as well. So that is who you educate. Now, how you go about that, you start with personal stories, just like we have tonight. Those stories that get you from your head thinking, yes, this is a good justice thing to do, to helping you understand just a little bit more why we do this from the personal heart stories. If you can have heart stories from your own congregation, that's good, or heart stories from the community, or stories that are on videos. There are all kinds of ways. Then in a church, it's very important to explore the theological understanding. It's changed from what it was even, in 1980, when homosexuality was a sin in the United Church of Canada. So that all needs to be unpacked. People need to be able to say, well, why is it different now? What is our understanding now? And help them come to the understanding, as we've heard tonight, that all of us are God's children and we come as we are and we're loved as we are. Then I think it's good that we hear from others on the impact of being affirming on their ministry. We heard from Ryan tonight. He goes into downtown and young people are recognizing him as coming from an affirming ministry. And the final thing that's important is to explore that this is a justice issue, and society is moving and has moved to that point, and the church needs to keep up with justice of today in society. So now on this slide, we've done the educating, and next thing we would do, or alongside while educating is happening, is to start some documentation. And the first thing that you will need to do is have an affirming vision statement. Now, this can be something that you build on from your vision statement that you have already, Some churches are ready to explore making a brand new vision statement. That will be particular to your congregation. But in your affirming vision statement, you must have language that about the inclusion of people of all gender identities and sexual orientations in all aspects of the life and work of the ministry. And those are things that I talked about right at the beginning, the explicit intentional language and speaking about being welcomed into all aspects of the congregation. The second thing that we asked you to prepare, and this is a really good thing, we didn't do this years ago, like 25 years ago, this was not required, but it's really a good idea and it is required as a step. And that is to make an action plan. And this is an action plan for once you become affirming and you are living into being affirming. So it's how are you going to keep that spirit and that newness and excitement of being affirming alive and keep doing the work of educating and advocacy and support. So there are various things that you need to include, like signage, make sure you're public with who you are, who's going to implement the action plan, and celebrating your anniversary. And then, of course, there are all those things that you want specifically to do in your community. Like you might want to start a drop-in center for youth at your church, or there might be a need for seniors who are in the LGBTQ plus communities. So there's room for also things that are specific to your congregation that you will feel the need for and will want to do. So the third document that you will need to do, and I think many of you probably have this in place already, is to have an equal marriage policy. And that's marriage for couples of all gender combinations. And people have various policies. Their policy is very short and just succinct, and then they have a little program booklet that goes along giving you all the details. Others have everything in the policy, but that is how you do that is specific to you, but you do need to have that policy clearly stating that you will marry couples of all gender combinations or people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. So that's the documentation part. And then the next part is after you get that done and you feel you've done all the education you need, then we move to the commitment. And the commitment is a vote of the congregation. And here I've said participants of the community of faith. So what we're looking for here is the commitment of the people that sit and play and work with you as a whole. It's not only official members, it's not only adherents that come on Sunday, but it's others that are part of your community and want to be part of this commitment. We set a minimum of 75% positive outcome, which you will understand if you think about it, because you don't want to have 50% of your congregation not on board when you're welcoming people that are in looking for a safe place to be. So 75% is the minimum that we ask. And congregations come in with 80, 85, 95, some are unanimous. So you do your vote at a time when you think you're ready. Like I said, it takes different lengths of time for different communities of faith. And you include everyone. Then you make another commitment by becoming a member of Affirm United with an annual membership fee. There are more details for this on our website, but just to say that the membership fee for an affirming ministry is from $100 minimum to $500 maximum. It is based on your net revenue And that is a number, a figure that you submit in your annual report to the United Church of Canada, and they give us that figure. So on our website, it gives you the amount, what the formula is, but we try to be fair in having it based on your net revenue so that large churches are paying more than the smaller churches. So having done all those things, then it's time to celebrate. This is the final step. It's an important step. You advertise and you invite the public. I saw one celebration recently where they had the mayor there and they had the MP, I think, and various people there to celebrate this achievement of being educated finally into what it means to be truly welcoming, and that you're out there saying, please come in. So at that final celebration service, you will be declared an affirming ministry and receive a certificate. And on the next slide, having felt like that was a lot of information on several slides, here's the summary. You educate, you document with vision statement, action plan, equal marriage policy. You vote and make that commitment with a 75% approval. Then you make a commitment further by joining Affirm United, Affirming Ensemble, for an annual fee. And then you have a party and you celebrate. And I should have put a sixth point, because the sixth point is you go on being an affirming ministry, which we've heard tonight is very important. So on the next couple of slides, I have some resources that I'm not going to speak about. This is recorded, so you will have these, you can access them. And also if you connect with an affirming ministry coordinator, either by, as Peter said, through an email to me, or on the website, there's a place to connect. Then we will send you opening documents and how to get started, and this list of resources. So Peter, how are we doing for time?
Well, Linda, I think it's about 20 after 8. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm thinking we don't have much time, so I won't talk too much. So I'll open up for questions for maybe about 5 minutes, so people can either write something in the chat or raise their virtual hand. And I'm going to be putting your phone number in the chat. Not your phone number, sorry. Your email address in the chat. So if we don't get all the questions, they can email you. So I think there is a message in the chat already, and it says, does Affirm United have a list of people available for community of faith affirming committees to contact to come and speak or to share their heart stories with their congregation?
So actually, we do not have a list. Your individual coordinator would sometimes have ideas of people in your own community, but we usually count on you finding those local people or getting help from your regional council affirming network, which would be Peter and his team. So at the moment, there are 3 coordinators for the country. I look after Ontario, so people that are probably present tonight would be communicating with me. And as I said, I'm located in Kingston, so, but over my time in doing this work, I have learned of people, and one of your best resources for this too is to connect with other affirming ministries in your area. And you can find those on our website. If you go on and there's a section Affirming Ministries, and you'll find there if the drop-down box that it says find a ministry, and it gives you the various 326 ministries by province and city, so you can easily find someone.
Okay, there's another question here. If our people are a bit older and not able to attend an Affirm conference, can we offer to sponsor a second delegate from the Affirming congregation? We are almost affirming. Whoops, I just lost it.
So I wasn't just, they're older, they can't come. Can you sponsor someone from outside the congregation? Is that what they're saying?
From the Affirming congregation, that's, yeah. I guess it'd be from the same, somebody else from, I'm not quite sure, Faye.
It's from, like from a neighboring congregation.
Oh, from a neighboring,
well, like from another one in the general area that we know is Affirming. That's all. It's just a question.
Oh, okay.
So the people we would expect at the conference would be people that are in tune with what this is all about. So now, whether or not they would be able to carry your vote to the annual general meeting, I'm not sure. I would leave that to others to decide, but they would certainly be welcome to come. And in fact, anybody is welcome to come, but just with that understanding that we've never had anybody come and be objectionable, but we wouldn't want that, of course, but yeah.
Okay, another person is asking, could this presentation be shared for later reference? And actually it is going to be on the, it is being recorded, so you can find it on the regional website.
Okay. Yeah, so if it were in the recording, then you'd have the slides as well, wouldn't you, Peter?
That's correct.
Yeah. And much of like the information that I've given, if you get in touch with us, we can send you more information and contacts and links to different things.
So Linda, the question would be, can we, this is Rob Smith, staff for Affirming in Canadian Shield. I'm just wondering if we could take your slide, your PowerPoint presentation, and send it to the participants in this evening's call. Is that possible? Can you give us permission to do that?
I'd be happy if you do that. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. And the other question we have here, or it's not a question, it's just a Ruth.
Yep.
Is available in the GTA area to come and chat. So I just want to bring that out. Sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to replace myself with you, so I will switch somehow.
I don't mind being switched out. Somebody asked,
and we got rid of Linda too.
Somebody's asking, may they have permission to share Celio's story? Well, Celio's story is on a part of our recording. Yeah. So you will hear that story on. For those people in the Canadian Shield region, if they have any questions about possible people to come to their congregation and talk about Affirming, people from our Affirming team, there's possibly people on our Affirming team that will talk to your congregation and community of faith about it.
So Peter, I think we might have some people also from outside of Shining Waters and Canadian Shield, and I would encourage them to get in touch with their regional council office and the minister there that's working with justice issues, and they could be of help.
And of course,
So-
you can always go to your local Pride committees wherever you live. There are different organizations that you can ask if they will send in a guest speaker also. I can't see if there's any hands raised.
Well, Peter, there are two more questions on the chat.
Oh,
and
good.
this one's a good another one. This is from Faye. We're almost affirming. That's kind of like almost being pregnant. But if an amalgamation or shared ministry happens in the future, how does that affirming church? How does the affirming church keep its status in the middle of a bigger group?
Yeah. So what happens in an amalgamation is if two affirming ministries come together, then they've had the education, they've made the commitment, but they need to, as that new body, do the vision statement, action plan, and have the equal marriage policy. And then a new certificate is issued to them, and we encourage them to celebrate that. If only one of however many are amalgamating is affirming, then we ask that they do the process again, but in a different way, because of course there would be people that have done this intensely and know what it's all about. There will be people that may know something, maybe not know much. So do it with that in mind. And also to remember that even though you have been affirming, like some congregations now have been affirming for 25 years, well, it's probably time for an update. So if you can encourage them, yes, we need to do this. And we had one situation 10 years ago, and they kept saying to me, do we really need to do this? Like the other congregation said, we're fine. We like you the way you are, and we're going to be the same. And we said, no, we need to do it. In the end, they wrote and they said, this was the best thing we could have done, because they had spent so much time in an amalgamation on all those other things like buildings and baptismal fonts and UCWs coming together. And this was something of justice and of real deep spiritual importance. And they said it brought us together in a new way. So that's the story I use to convince, but it does need to happen again. But as I say, it happens in a different way.
Thank you so much, Linda. It is 8:30, my friends. And although we are having a wonderful conversation about affirming, I have to respect the timeline in which we're in. So what I would like to say is that I did post Linda Hutchison's email address in the chat. And you can also go to the Affirm United website where you can, if you have questions, there is a form you can fill out and it will go to one of their coordinators or somebody can answer your questions. I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to have a prayer in a minute, but I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. I am overwhelmed with gratitude. It's for everybody who came out this evening. And so I'd like to thank all our guest speakers. I'd like to thank Linda Hutchison. I would like to thank everybody who signed in to be with us this evening. And I want you to know that we will continue this conversation, and we will probably be having something in the near future where we can all get together and talk again. So thank you so much. And I'm now going to put it over to Linda Hutchison. I'm not Linda Hutchison, sorry, to Whitney. Sorry.
All good. And I'm actually giving you a blessing and benediction instead of a prayer. So may you go from here troubled like the first waters of creation. And may out of your troubles come the amazing wonder of new life. May you go from here illuminated like the first spark of light of creation. And out of this illumination, may you perceive the way God is calling you and your communities of faith. May you go from here assured that all is created very well. And we are invited to celebrate this very well creation and all of its diversity and creativity. May you go tonight with the stellar love of God. Amen.
Thank you so much, and good night.